hyper-connected world. Are you ready for the next session? Yes? Alright. For the next session, we're going to have Anita Nayyar, CEO, Media, Branding and Communications, Patanjali Ayurved. Okay. Meanwhile, I call upon all the speakers on stage. I'll request them to please be seated right there on the round table and we talk a bit about them. Okay, so talking about Miss Anita, a brand and a communication and media expert with 30 years of rich experience, Anita Nayyar is a veteran of the India media industry. She is currently the CEO Media and Communication for Patanjali Ayurved Limited, a revolutionary FMCG giant. Let's have a big round of applause for Anita Nayyar. And next up, I'm going to talk about Lloyd Mathias. He's an angel investor and a business strategist. He invests, partners and collaborates with the founders of early stage companies in the areas of AI, EdTech, data analysts and digital technology. Lloyd is on the board of many companies as an independent director. Let's have a huge round of applause for our angel investor. Moving on, next we have Saikat, Sinha, APAC, consumer market lead Lenovo, and he's there with us. He is a marketer with 14 years of experience across sectors like BFSI, SAS, automobiles, media and consumer electronics. He is an MBA from IIM Lucknow. Let's have a huge round of applause for Saikat Sinha. Next up, I'm going to invite Mr. Ashish Tiwari, the CMO of Home Credit India. Is a digital first marketer practicing the allocation of brand marketing technology and data analytics, and enterprise and professional. He comes with 20 years of corporate experience across consumer, FMCG, and FMCD, telecom, and new media domains. Let's have a round of applause for Ashish Tiwari. Next up, we move on to Mr. Naved, Aqueel, Managing Director, Magnon, Sancus. Naved is an entrepreneur with almost 2 decades of experience in client acquisition, client onboarding, and leadership development. Currently, Naved leads Magnon, Sancus, the localization and language services arm of Magnon, which is an over 150 member unit servicing some of the most largest brands in the world. And let's have a big round of applause for 5 incredible speakers on stage. I think I'll have to say that we're truly looking forward to the next session, and our audience looks super excited about this session because the first session was absolutely interesting. Am I right? Yes? And a bigger round of applause for our speakers once again, and let's begin with Lloyd.
Thank you so much. Is this working? Now that's where the pressure starts, because the first session was very good. So along with my panelists, there's quite a bit to do. Yeah? We're going to raise the bar. Alright, so just coming back to what we're going to be talking about, and I haven't forgotten my notes today. I got my notes. Alright, so we're talking about building B2C brands for a global audience. Localization for a hyper-connected world. Right? I think that's the topic, and what we'll start with is just trying to demystify what that means. Right? Global audience, localization, hyper-connected world. I mean, some big terms out there. Let's try and demystify. Let's understand what our speakers are talking about, and then we can take the discussion from there. Like Greg said, it's a Friday evening. Let's have a nice time. Cool. All right. So we'll start with you. I think what's your thought on those big terms, and then we'll move to the right.
I'm going to kind of get over with the first word which you said, raise the bar. Yeah. I just got stuck here. Anyways, coming back, I think to me, today if you look at from a consumer point of view, the something which has changed in past 20 years is the democratization of information. So what was information which was available in very, very few selected pockets to a selected audience, today is available pan geography. Okay. Somebody sitting down in anywhere in the world having access to a simple device which has more computing power than the computers which were used to send the astronauts to NASA at one point in time. Your mobile, a simple mobile has like some 100 times more computing power than that. With those devices and ubiquitous data connections, everybody is exposed to some area or a lot of areas pan geography. So, I mean, we truly are venturing into global village kind of a scenario. So to me, any audience which you are serving is a global audience for that sense. Because even if you haven't been, I mean, I have come across with people who know streets of New York better than probably New Yorkers will, because they have kind of looked at it online, have done street views and whatever and whatnot. To the second thing, when you talk about hyper-connected, I mean, gone are the days of browsing. I remember when I used to be young, paying some $120 to connect to an internet cafe. Today, I mean, while coming from there to here, you would have checked a couple of news, a couple of elements. I mean, like we speak right now, you would see a lot of people seeing it in the real space, a lot of us seeing it on a 2D space using their whatever camera, mobile, whatever they are looking at. So, I mean, at any point in time, consumer is connected. We are living in a phygital world. It is neither digital nor physical. We are constantly yo-yoing between that. It's like a sine wave for a physics student. So, I think the fact of the matter is that there is nothing called as a local audience as such. With the technology being at the state, I think any audience is a global audience. Like we used to say, there is always a Bharat in every town and India in every town. There is always a village in a town and town in a village. Now you have in any audience, you have a global audience. And despite being a global audience from an exposure point of view, we are going through interesting times. I don't think so at any point in time a marketer had to go through a conundrum of dealing with 5 different generations in one swoosh.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think we should come back to that.
Absolutely.
I would kind of pass it on next.
Sure. Over to you.
I just thought I'll sit in the middle because I'm flanked by men on both sides. And all the women out there, we also need to raise the bar now, whatever that bar means. It's not only the men who are going to chill out, that's not done. Yeah, so the women are also chilling out. But coming back to audiences, I think audiences are audiences, guys. I think we just complicate them by saying they're global audiences or they're local audiences and things like that. Now, you can define them on the basis of markets, you can define them on the basis of geographies where they are, but audiences are audiences, right? And I think for brands, it becomes very important to connect with them. And when we're talking about hyper-connection, yes, so there's a human-to-machine connection, there is a machine-to-machine connection, and there's a human-to-human connection. And that probably defines the digital piece that Ashish was mentioning about. And localization, guys, I mean, isn't that self-explanatory? So I don't think we need to really demystify the three, phrases that one has been talking about. But I think more from others.
So if you break the three phases, first is about hyper-connected world. So hyper-connected world is leading to global audiences. Somebody living in the remotest part of a village have information access at their fingertips. I mean, even if they don't like downloading an app to read news, they have access to WhatsApp news, where they get information. They access Facebook, they access Instagram, where again, articles of their choice come in. So, I just want to give an example. For there's a debt crisis that was going on in this. If we just go to YouTube and search about it, we will get tons of articles, tons of people sharing their opinion. It has become so easy to understand such a complex situation. But it was never the same even if we go back 20 years behind when there was a dot-com bubble. So the information has become easy, information is power, and that is what making the audiences global. That's first. And when it comes to localization, what brands are trying to do is understand the customer where they're serving and try to cater to their needs by changing either their communication or the product.
Thank you. Yeah, I think being the last speaker, everyone's said the said the key part. I just want to contextualize localization by an analogy that all of us are familiar. The IPL is still in our minds, though it's 2 days away. In the first IPL, there was one TV broadcaster, and all the matches, at best, you had a choice of 2 languages, English or Hindi. In the one that got over on Monday, or shall we say Tuesday morning, the finals of all the matches were available in 16 languages, right? And this was with Jio Cinema, but even the broadcaster had 12 languages, right? So you could do that. But more importantly, I'm told that the Jio Cinema feed was split innumerable times, right? So if you were watching an ad in Udaipur that evening and somebody else was watching in Chennai, like all of Chennai was watching, you were seeing 2 entirely different sets of ads, right? So localization is real, because it's even a mass media real time, you're seeing different things. And therefore, the bigger point I would say as a team of, let's say, marketeers and business leaders here, is that today advertisers don't have control over the entire process. Back in the 80s, you created one ad and you served it to zillions. Now, you're just participating in a conversation, you're putting out an ad, people are responding real time. And because of the hyper-connected world, everyone has a point of view. So if someone thinks your ad is controversial, crappy, stupid, he goes out and says it. And if enough people believe so, it trends and it hurts you. Right? So in a sense, it's also about marketers evolving from just generating communication now to being curators of conversation. And that's the reality of this hyper-local world.
Sure. Okay. I just wanted to kind of add one thing. And I think, how many of us have heard the term Web 1.0, 2.0, 3.0? I think all of us probably. Yeah. That was not a question, just trying to figure out that if people are still awake. Yeah. Or everybody has, because of very few people were looking at this side, there was some commotion that side, and I thought, might as well. Yeah. Anyways, if just to answer your question and contextualize that, I think, and probably you will agree with me or disagree, please feel free. Web 1.0, if you go back to the roots of it, it was about one-to-many. You create and everybody is just there to consume. Web 2.0 is about almost one-to-one. So it's not only that you say, I also get to say. Yeah, that's the reason, I mean, all these creators to trolls to promoters to whatever, influencer, de-influencer, all that what we talk about. Whether we like it or not, we are at the verge of somewhere between 2.0 and 3.0. Okay, and while there were terms about metaverse and some people thinking that there will be avatars roaming around everywhere, I hope none of them are here. Okay, it's about individual asset ownership coming in between. It's about distributed common asset ownership. The moment you have a distributed common asset ownership, I think you can't own an asset if it doesn't belong to you. So it has to be local. You just can't have something which does not belong. Local does not mean sitting right next to you. Local means your ownership. Yeah. You talk about hyper-connected. You just can't have an asset if you can't access it. If it's my house, I should be able to get into that. And that's where the hyper-connected, because of your data and devices, then they become ubiquitous. You would like to access them. I mean, when you go, it's like saying that when you go to a restaurant, you will take a buffet, you will spend time. But at home, you would not have 7-course meal every day. You would keep taking bites. And that's how keep taking bites while you are taking a bite. You will also probably go on phone. People who have done work from home knows that earlier there were sitting benches, standing benches. Now there is something called as laying benches, 90-degree benches, 180-degree benches, yoga benches, and I don't know what all. Okay? And the moment you start looking at from that point of view, that's where it all starts making sense. It's the same person. Only thing which has changed is how you slice and dice. And there's just one last point, I think. Saikat said that there is a lot of information available. The only point of difference I have here is, I think information has gone down dramatically. The difference between data and information is actionable, precise, to the point, and at any point in time it has to have some, you can have trust on that. And I think for brands and marketers, the entire journey is about collecting and siphoning through that heaps of data. We are living in a data overload world, and collecting through that heaps of data and then figuring out that where does the value of truth lies. And that is where I think brands have a role to play.
Absolutely. I think to set up the conversation, I think we've just touched the right set of points. And just to build on information and trying to figure out how brands are actually using this data. Everybody has been talking about vernacular, regional communication being very important. 9 or 10 users coming online today in India are regional first, native first users. Every brand realizes that, but the amount of effort and energy that brands are putting in that direction, is it in sync with that demand? Or are brands still facing a hesitation in going about it? What's that for? What's that ecosystem like?
Okay. I think, see, when you think of a vernac, okay, depends on to the kind of a category you are serving. Interesting point. The more entry level, if you cut the audience on a pyramid, the more bottom of pyramid you are, and the kind of a need you serve to our audience. If you are an aspirational brand for that audience, even if he does not need, if you talk to him in Hindi, he will feel offended because of you think I don't know English. Okay, and that's the kind of a thing. I deal in a category which is the easiest category in the world. I distribute money. And I keep saying, yeah, that was the pitch which was given to me by headhunter when, oh, you are selling insurance. Earlier I was selling insurance, so I mean, you know how insurance is to be sold live, not general. So even more tougher, now I give out loans. The recruiter said that it's easy, everybody needs money. I thought, yeah, let me also make some money. Only he forgot to tell me and I forgot to realize that the only reason why you give credit is so that you can collect it back. I wish I could do it without giving it. But having said that, when I go to these audiences at the bottom of pyramid, we have journeys in multiple languages, we have content available in multiple languages. The fact of the matter is that while the search is being done in Hindi, the person still likes to read and tries and make sense complex words. They'll go back into their tongue. So when we are thinking about vernac as a thing, there is something called as colloquial. In Hindi, there is in a very Sanskrit way, it is tatsam and tatva. Brands where we end up making mistake is when you say Hindi, you know how many people, I mean how many marketers in the room? Okay, can somebody tell me any CMO out here? Can somebody tell me what's the Hindi designation of a CMO? No? How many Mukhya Vipanan Adhikari in the room? That's the designation, yeah, for a CMO. So you understand, the moment you get into that vernac, that becomes a challenge. So vernac is important because if you want to connect to a consumer, if there are detailed points orientation, you need to get there. The challenge remains is the moment you get into vernac, Hindi is not Hindi across the country. You know, I mean, just a simple thing. How many of us have seen Philips rod? The electric rod of Philips? Yeah? All of us have seen? What do you call it in Hindi in Bihar? Anybody knows that? It's called as janda. The electric bulb, if you go and ask bulb, you won't be, it's called as lattu. So it all depends. I mean, the moment and the reason I am picking these points up is because the moment you get into vernac, then the person expects you to be local, and that's where the localization comes into. Localization is if you want to be like me, then be like me. Correct. You can't just be robing up Osama to make him a Gandhi just because of he is wearing a white robe. Okay. And that's the key part of vernac. And the reason for brands to be challenging there is, again, the cut of audience, the ROI comes into play, the effort it requires. Because you not only need to kind of be able to connect and understand these nuances, but be able to have resources to create the content in those nuances. I think that's where the main challenge lies on one hand. Having said that, if you are able to create that, I mean, you would certainly be winning the gold mines out there, because then you are able to connect with your audience better, you are able to create inroads into their entire purchase behavior cycle, and the more you are, I mean, the more work you have on top of the line, top of the funnel, the easier it becomes at bottom of the funnel if you have designed the funnel correctly.
So basically going regional so you get it right, otherwise don't do it. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Actually, I think brands don't have a choice.
Sure.
When we talk about localization or talking in the same language, because I mean, I belong to some 30 years back when we used to create advertising only in English, right? And they were translators. So the captions and the headlines used to get translated. The campaigns were not conceived in that language. So I remember when I was in Ogilvy, Prasoon Joshi was the first Hindi copywriter that Ogilvy had hired. He would conceive campaigns in Hindi. Because when you translate from English to Hindi, it's like a Google Translate, right? So, where everything is very different. I mean, if you go to Translate and check it out, I mean, at times it's hilarious as well. So, my point is that, brands today, if you have to connect with the consumers, and there's been enough talk about localization, I think the relevance for a brand to the consumer has to be in his or her language. Which is why would I advertise in English in a Gujarati newspaper, right? I am your audience, I speak Gujarati. You talk to me in my language if you want my attention. And that's where this whole thing of, getting regional, and I would be or vernacular, whatever you may call that whole thing emerged. Because, Shah Rukh Khan may be a Shah Rukh Khan in the north, there is Prabhas in the south, right? So there is a difference. I mean, I remember Coke or Pepsi, I don't remember which brand, had two brand ambassadors. So the guy who would resonate with the north was another film star, and the guy who would resonate in the south was another one. And why are we saying that? Because that's what localization is all about. That as a consumer, the brand needs to talk to me in my language. So honestly, if you ask me, I'm not getting into Lattu and Rod, dialects are different. And that's where I think the earlier panel spoke about influencers, where we were talking about, getting regional influencers who are talking to their audiences in their language.
Okay.
It might convert the brand into some hilarious stuff or the information going out, but the essence of that is that regional influencer or a nano influencer is important to that market because he or she talks to that the audience in that dialect. So I personally think that we don't have a choice. As brands, we do need to talk to consumers, and especially when in this age of personalization. Talk to me. And talk to me when I understand.
Fantastic. Sure.
So I'll take a step back and talk more about India. And agree with what Anita just said. Brands don't have a choice. Let's look at the population. It's 8.
Become quite a joke now, yeah.
They all started calling me Anita ji because of Patanjali. Sorry guys.
No, it is G Anita ji.
I'm enjoying it. It's like it.
So the total population is 8 billion and we are like 1.5. 1 out of every 7 human being on this earth are Indian. So brands can't ignore this. They have to cater to products, communication for us. There's absolutely no two thoughts that way. Just now let's look at what the brands have done. Starbucks has started selling masala tea. Can you even imagine masala tea? Paneer, which is known as cottage cheese, is everywhere in Domino's. It's probably the best thing, best pizza. We don't get paneer pizza and cottage cheese pizza outside India and Europe and US. Brands don't have a choice, they have to do it. Kellogg's, who is known for selling cornflakes, has started making upma. So that's where it is going, and it's not about the product but also communication. So while Anita ji was talking about the different language, I was just thinking that suppose I go back home today and my apartment guard wishes me bonjour. So what will I feel? Will I feel happy? I will probably feel okay, he has taken French classes. But many of us won't understand what he is telling. But probably, good evening sir or kaise ho sir will be more close to me. So I think it's more the communication in the language that matters. And secondly, brands don't have a choice. They want to do business in India, talk to us in our language.
Right. Right. Just takes a second.
Sorry. Yeah, I think the subject's been kind of well debated. Just a point here is, I think consumers are looking for authenticity, and therefore, as Anita ji rightly said, we're looking beyond just translations or transliterations. I think consumers are looking at authenticity. Authenticity is all about a brand communicating in a relevant manner. And just to give you a real life example, say back in the 90s when some of us around were the working system, when you used a cab in any city, you broke to the driver in Hindi, you expect that. But when you went to Chennai, you were specifically told, if you don't know Tamil, you switch to English as a second option. Because the Hindi is not just not workable, but doesn't get you the desired response in a manner of speaking. Right? So understanding the small nuances, I think that's what's critical. So authenticity is all about planting your brand in that local culture and speaking to people in a manner that seems authentic, it seems one among their own, not something that's generated from a translator or just created to tick a box. So I think that's the point that I'm sure we all agree on.
Sure, fantastic. So now one of the things we've seen as partners to a lot of brands, that when people in today's time and age, when everybody understands, like we all agree, we don't have a choice, we have to do it. We have to go that route, we have to speak to them in their native tones, languages, with their regional influences and all of that. But brands still, a lot of times, don't follow the entire cycle. So there is a campaign, everything is ready, conceptualized in English, then suddenly you remember, oh, Hindi mein translate kar. So then what tends to happen is now a vernac user, a regional user has seen that ad in Hindi, he's got excited, clicked, come on to a website that's in English. Right? So such drops in the entire experience of regional users is something that we feel that brands kind of need to work towards, because it's not about just that communication but the entire experience that a vernac user would have. So to which effect, from a brand's perspective, right, we agree we need to do it. Is that barrier to making that entire experience seamless easy? Or you find hurdles, challenges? What's that like? Let's start with Lloyd.
Yeah, I think the transition from a kind of English or English Hindi to other languages has not been very easy. But like I said, the primary objective there has always been, how do you communicate to a broader audience in an authentic, genuine and realistic manner? And therefore, one part of the solution is originating creative in local languages, right? Which may not be possible. Just like a Prasoon Joshi was a one-off Hindi creative in the early 90s. Today you can't have agencies with multiple. But today the power of hyper-localization, and as the previous panel debated on, I think the ability to have creators and influencers across the spectrum makes the process so much more easier. And that gives you the desired multiplier effect. So if I were to just, again, contextualize this, I would say that the power of the short video format, right? Today, let's say as a single channel, YouTube is the largest single channel. More people watch more things, more videos on YouTube than anywhere else. And of course, the whole world of short format videos. TikTok is gone, but TikTok's avatars and TikTok through WhatsApp has come in. I think the ability to contextualize and create local communication that brings a smile, that entertains, is what brands can thrive on. And therefore, the move away from centralized, controlled creative to curation of conversations that are relevant and that bring out the brand story in a manner that endears with consumers and builds your brand appeal is the direction that's being moved in. Not all brands are being able to do it successfully. It involves not just investment, but it also involves a lot of building what is called first party data. The advantage that we have today is that thanks to this hyper-connected world, thanks to digital technology, thanks to about 800 million Indians on the net, is that you have an ability to do an amazing level of personalization. Now we're not just talking about how we talk to a vast swathe of Indians by state, by dialect, by region and language. You can also talk to personality types, right? You also have pre-built algorithms that can tell you that if this person is a sports buff, if he likes to read XYZ newspaper, this is the kind of stuff. And therefore, when you marry the power of artificial intelligence, you're able to get absolutely top-notch content. And again, AI might seem like, using a lot of jargon. I think it's simply, if you tune into a Spotify, Apple Music, because they have millions of consumers around the world, they're able to predict your next likable song to the nearest T. Because one, they filter it by genres. So they know if you're a rock music fan and you like ghazals and you also like qawwali, then this is the other genre you like. And then they filter it by artist. So after you listen to a Mohammed Rafi, followed by a Pink Floyd, followed by let's say a Ghulam Ali, they know exactly what is the next singer that you might like to choose. For the simple reason that they have the benefit of 750 or 800 million, almost a billion users on their platform, and that gives them the power. So I think that's the contextualization that is upon us. And using technology smartly is good, but having the creative interface is what's going to be the critical difference.
Super. Saikat.
I think in 3-4 years back, Google and KPMG came up with a report together which spoke about what the next set of users coming from. They spoke about 3 V's: video, voice and vernacular. So video, we all know that how it has changed from YouTube to short form. Video is everywhere. No brand can ignore that I won't use video as a media. It can't happen. Video is everywhere. Voice has come up very easily, everywhere. It's voice search. Even your TV remote has a voice search button, which is embedded. Now vernacular. Have we seen vernacular coming up very, very sharply on net? Probably no. There are of course vernacular searches which are available in Google, but still, if you look at Amazon, it is probably English and Hindi. Why not there is no Telugu, Malayalam, Tamil or Bengali? Or any other e-commerce site? Why isn't it there? Hence the disjoint journey of clicking an ad. Ads can be made in vernacular languages with the help of AI, but clicking on it will bring us back to a website which is in English. I think the main reason behind this is on overall ROI that a company gauge by converting the entire ecosystem, every product page, every category page, every checkout page in the right local language. It's not an artificial intelligence, conversion. Like it's not a Google conversion. So that's the overall ROI is because of which I think brands are preventing. That's one part. Second part is the overall technology as an adaptation. Because of the script that is used by different languages, it is often having a problem to come up on the web. It looks different. It often takes the shape of special characters. So this is the reason. Second part to it is about artificial intelligence and custom videos. There are multiple solutions available now. Saikat sitting here talking this in English, at the same time can be converted in 15 languages, same person, same speech. Tools are available now. We all know how deepfake videos have been coming up, especially with the war situation in the 2 countries. We have seen the deepfake videos of the leaders coming up. So it's, of course, a scary world. AI is useful at the same time scary, but I think localization to a large extent is solved by AI.
Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what you said. I think absolutely right there. ROI is one big point there for brands, because for you to create that seamless journey for any customer, while you're talking a lot that you have to be local and adapt localization, but it costs you a lot of money if you're doing 30 languages, 50 languages, 20 languages, whatever.
Right.
So I think that is one of the reasons probably where brands cannot complete their seamless journey. Yeah, so that's very important. The other thing is also the fact that Lloyd spoke about nuances. I think that is very, very important. So wherever you look at localization from a nuances point of view, maybe you'll be able to pick up those nuggets and do, a far better job. Today, technology is enabling you to do all this. I mean, today you can translate or convert whatever you were talking about in 20 other different languages. I think what is very important is that if we were to leave everything to AI, then we lose our human piece. So there is human intervention and there is artificial intelligence coming in there. So it makes your life easier when you convert it into 20 languages. But for brands, I think there needs to be one human mind each on that language to check whether the messaging which is going out is correct or not. And so that I think is
Very nice. Very nice.
I think you can't just disagree with either of the points which have been said, and most of it is already been said. It's important, and the biggest challenge I think is, while everybody understands importance, I think the biggest challenge is ROI, and also about the, I think if you take a step back, it's also about the expectation of content creation laid out on a marketer today. 20 years back, it was like what? 4 campaigns a year, 3 campaigns a year you created, you had some 2 different formats and they were there. Today, at an average, 10 CR top line company creates more than 400 pieces of content on a yearly basis, which is like more than 1 piece of content to live. If it's a digital only organization, these are numbers which I was just reading in a report. If it's a digital first organization, the number just goes 10x. So it's not about only one challenge, it's about multiple challenges to be handled. I think the key lies in terms of understanding your audience and being able to sharply define both the context in which you are serving the content to the audience. I mean, a lot of times you will see that you are reading about a news website on which somebody will be trying to serve your content which should not have been there. I mean, you are talking about a happy brand, that my brand brings all the happiness, okay, and then it's being laid out on a news website which is talking about murder. Right. Probably not the place to be part of the media planning, but also can be controlled by the brand name. So it's about the context in which you are connecting with the user. How seamless can you make? Because all of us will agree, we are not the same person inside this room and outside on the road. Yeah, Delhi, Gadi,
Right. Okay, fair enough. Do we have a time check? Alright, so we're in the last 5 minutes of the session, so we'll open up to questions from the audience before we do our conclusions. Yeah. Any questions, please? Either they were too boring or everybody understood everything.
They are waiting for your first statement. We started with the very, very clear context setting.
Alright, okay, apparently no questions. Are we sure? Like we said, this is a time to pitch. Alright, okay, fair enough. So, Lloyd, your concluding thoughts to the topic, and what do you recommend as part of your conclusion to the new marketer coming in today? What do they think about? How do they go regional? Your advice?
Yeah, I think the core to marketing, the fundamentals haven't changed, which is really understanding your consumer and mining the consumer insight. I think that starting point remains. I think having done which, the ability to communicate and to get across the consumer in a relevant and authentic manner is now critical. It's no longer about mass generalizations. The more you can contextualize and personalize your communication, and technology today gives you the tools for that, the more effective your ability is. The last point I would say is also the ability to take feedback and move with it. Today, anything that you put out can have a counterpoint of view. In the digital world, everyone's a medium in himself, everyone's a bit of media. If something doesn't go well, be ready to get trolled. And the idea is to learn to live with this and turn this around to your advantage. As a marketer, you're no longer a high horse where you lay down the rules of how you want to communicate and people follow. Today, it's an open ecosystem, it's a democratized world, every which way. And therefore, the ability to roll with the punches, but to curate and make interesting conversations with consumers will determine your success in the long run.
couple of points. First is, I think we are going through a change of like, it's like an industrial revolution that is happening with AI. Back in, 100, 200 years back when the entire industrial revolution happened, many of the goldsmith people who wanted to actually stay back in the villages and make rings and ornaments were actually jobless. So the new age marketers should understand this and adopt AI, understand AI, new ways of marketing. So that's my first. You can't escape AI as a marketer. The second is the classical marketing put the customer on the throne of the king. If a king likes cold coffee, he likes cold coffee. Please don't serve him hot coffee.
Right.
So make the customer as the king and serve what the customer needs.
Awesome. Neatly summarized.
I think much has been said, so I will not repeat, but I think as brands, we should be very, very open to listening, what our consumers have to say. It's extremely important because if you don't listen to your consumers, you're neither here nor there. So that, to my mind, is the most important aspect. And once you listen to your consumer, you know what your consumer wants. Everything else, believe me, will fall into place. That's what I will do.
Fantastic. Thank you. Please.
I think, to my mind, I think it's all about contextualization, personalization, knowing your consumers, and living in a moment which is called as, so today I said, marketing WIP. I mean, gone are the days where you can just create a campaign, sit back, relax, enjoy, have your coffee, sleep, come back after 3 years and see something happening. I think it's all about WIP. At least I haven't seen, so don't try to be perfecting a campaign, because if you can't, by the time you will launch, something would have changed in the environment.
Sure.
So live in a WIP movement and try and manage inefficiencies of the system as much as you can. I mean, I love to call CMOs as chief inefficiency officers these days, because of whether it is IT, operations, sales, whoever it is, or one of the customer service executives sitting somewhere in the remote. Just because of he or she decided to do something, your funnel is going to get dropped, you are going to get questioned. So manage the inefficiencies, live in a WIP movement, and these are exciting times.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think that was very wise wisdom coming from a lot of experience that everybody's gathered. Thank you so much. Awesome discussion. Thank you, everyone.